Welcome back to N.E.R.D.S. I'm your host, Lucas, and joined with me is my other host,
Zackary.
And today, Zackary will be needlessly, endlessly ranting dumb shit about...
different... I would say... Well, okay. Favorite and different types of introductions we see within games and... video games and books.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the first chapter, the first tutorial level, kind of what different types of introductions we see. Talking about... I do want to discuss the challenges coming from two people who run and kind of write. Like, how do you introduce something?
Oh, that would be interesting.
So we'll talk about that after some...
Because we've had...
other wacky, fun conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be fun.
But before we get fully into that, of course, we gotta talk about how have we been this week?
Am I starting?
I guess so.
I think we ask this question every other time the other one hosts. Like, if I host and I'm like, how are you, Lucas? You're always like, am I starting?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, at this point, we should learn.
Yeah.
I'm horrid, abysmal, a shell of a person right now.
Wonderful.
So dead inside. I'm so tired. I closed in my work week. I closed 2 days, which I usually only close Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Because I run Dragon Realms on Thursday. So I talk to my boss and I was like, hey, can I close? That way I don't have to wake up at 8 a.m. I can wake up at like 11. I also close Saturday, which turns out Saturday night I learned that daylight savings was Sunday.
Yes.
So not only did I close 2 nights in a row, the next shift is an 8 a.m. and I lose an hour of sleep. So Sunday wasn't too bad. I woke up and I was like, okay, I'm not feeling terrible. I got coffee. God bless whoever gave me coffee, but she started going into a weird story of her life that I was like, I don't care. She was like, I was sick and I was bedridden and it was weird, and I was like, I genuinely couldn't care less. But it's hit me today. I woke up this morning. Apparently my alarm had gone off for like a minute and a half. And I like woke up later and I was like, it was still going off. And I was like, I didn't hear it. So it really just caught up today. But other than that, good.
Mm-hmm.
This is another one of those weeks where I didn't do much. I think we talked about in episode 8 of just like learning to enjoy just
not doing much.
But I'm not used to closing Saturday, so like Friday I usually just don't do anything until my boyfriend gets home, because it's always like an hour after I get off work. I get off at like 8:30, he gets off at like 10 usually. So I just don't do anything.
Yeah.
Saturday is usually the day where I like plan for if I have to do N.E.R.D.S or I do a little bit of Dragon Realms writing, but I didn't do anything because I had to close. And then yesterday I was like, God, I have to do so much. And so instead of just laying in bed, I wrote for N.E.R.D.S. I did start planning your guys' next location for Dragon Realms, the Iron City, and I built some of the... I didn't do any like physical planning, it was more lore planning. So tonight I might plan some like shops and districts and like where, like physically plan the world instead of just like, this is the lore of this world, this is what happened before.
Yeah.
But I was like, I didn't do much. And then I think that's kind of all. I just planned for a few hours, and I think I started watching YouTube. So I was like, really not doing much.
Mm-hmm. I just worked.
Yeah, it's just one of those weekends. Like, just not much happened.
Oh, God, my fucking week was horrible for, like, a good majority of it. Part of that was work. Part of that was mental state. And then, like, yesterday was kind of the first day where I was like, all right, I'm kind of back to like a 70%. Let's do it, you know? And then realizing, you know, it's time management shit, like I've talked about before. I'm sitting down tomorrow, because today I was just wanting to relax. But I am sitting down tomorrow, and I'm going to start making a list for myself of things to do every day of the week and keep that as a structure. And here's the kicker with it. I'm then also going to be like, these tasks I can do at 50%. These tasks I can do at like 80%. So I can kind of tell where I'm at in the day and be like, okay, I'm at a 50% day. So this is as much as I'm going to get done because these are the tasks I've set myself for a 50% day on this day.
Are you paying extra mana cost for the kicker ability?
Something like that.
Okay. You said kicker, my first brain went, I always paying the extra mana cost for that.
Yeah.
Because you do have to pay for extra.
I do.
That
was one of the nerdiest things we've ever said.
The second you said kicker, my brain went to, I can't remember the card name, but it's like, character gets like a +2/+2, or you pay the kicker and it's like a +4/+4 instead. And I was like, I have to make this joke. But it's smart, and it's smart to be like, you know, if you don't do it every day, but like at least this week I want to clean the dishes or like do laundry, and it's like, okay, well, laundry's going to be like, I need to be at 80% because that always takes a lot, and dishes are easy, so maybe if I'm at like a 40%, I can do the dishes, and that way you have a list of like, God, I'm really not feeling well, but what are some things I know I could probably get done?
So it allows me to like kind of structure, like, because having my days be like, okay, these are the tasks I get done every day per week. Is like allows me to have a structure, because I'm realizing that's probably the biggest thing why I don't do much is I have not set a structure for myself. To allow myself to do more. You know, I don't have a standard, so it's like, okay, I literally just gotta write a standard then. And then hopefully that'll help me start, like, get some momentum rolling again, because this week has been me beating the hell out of myself for not having any momentum and feeling terrible that I have not done anything for at the start of this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because we're now a third of the way through March, which is crazy to think about. Because I feel like we just started this podcast, and it was like, God, the year's so ahead of us. We're like, ugh, March. But no, I get it.
So,
and hopefully that helps. I mean, you bought the planner, so that'll be nice.
But yeah, that's the idea. And I have that cork board in my room, so I'm literally going to hang up that list and be like, okay, can I get this done? So I at least know what my expectations are throughout the day, and then I can't beat myself up if I'm at like a 10% day. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Because the worst thing I can do personally to myself is feel shame and beat myself up over it. Because that's what paralyzes me the most and makes me not want to do anything else.
And there's so many great things that you can do for days like, you know, if you're like, if it's a 10% day, instead of just being like, do nothing, relax, if you want to still feel accomplished, it'd be like, well, maybe 10% days are the days you shower. Or it's like...
Or I go on a walk.
You go on a walk. It's like, you still have a task to do, but like hopefully the task in itself is semi-refreshing and relaxing of, well, I don't want to just be like, well, I don't feel good, so do nothing. And it's like, well, take a walk, or maybe don't do an actual chore, but maybe do something that's like, you know, kind of healthy. Like, fucking just down a whole cucumber, raw dog a corn on the cob. Like, those are the things you do on a 10% day.
Yeah. Just a deep throat.
Deep throat a corn on the cob. Like, simple, easy. Really makes you feel better.
But yeah, I'm not going to go into my shitty week. Work stuff kind of went into mental health stuff. I'll just say, Jamie. Manager.
We hate you. This is the third week in a row we've talked about you. It's
the third week where I'm like, you really need to get off my butt. Like,
damn.
Because I'm getting tired of it.
Damn.
I got lectured again.
Oh.
For another thing. Whenever I didn't do a Jamie project, which is what I'm started calling them. It's Jamie projects. Whenever I didn't do a Jamie project, that freaking led to me not finishing the task on a Sunday that was like a $7,000 day.
Jeez.
And I am one of 2 dishwashers.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, they said you spent like 20 minutes waiting on a ride. And I was like, yeah, because I already clocked out.
Yeah,
I'm not going to stay here.
No,
I'm off the clock.
If we catch you, Jamie, on the streets.
There are things I respect. There are things I respect.
Mm-hmm.
But there are things that I'm like, dude, you really gotta stop.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to his stepson. But I'm not gonna get into that because that's way more personal.
Yeah. I don't know why that made me think of... I came across a video of someone doing a Trump impersonator as a sandworm from Dune. It's like, hello everyone, I'm Shide Hood from Arrakis, Pesky Paul, and it just kept going on, and I was like, it's just been in my head for the last 3 days of just this Trump impersonation of a sandworm in Arrakis. So, I don't know why that talk just made me immediately think of that, but,
But yeah. Anyway.
it's just been a weird week.
It's been a weird week. Other than that, going on some better stuff. What's been a weekly obsession of yours, if anything?
I originally struggled to figure out my weekly obsession. I have 3. As I always have more than one. I've started nicknaming these when I write my episodes weekly obsessions. Because I literally have weekly obsessions. I never just have one.
Yeah.
Me and my boyfriend watched the 1984 Dune last Wednesday in preparation of watching Dune Part 2 this Wednesday. So that's been one of my weekly obsessions. Was I love old sci-fi. And the outfits are really cool. See if I can pull some up for you. Not 18. The 1984 Dune is more honoring of the books. So a lot of it's like, oh yeah, this did happen, or it's got a little bit more of like, they just actually took dialogue from the book and that is the script, which I kind of enjoy at times. But it's got a really cool... It's that classic sci-fi of, like, you know it's a prop being held or, like, on a, like, string that's being floated. Like, and the version we have came with a bunch of behind-the-scenes. So we got to watch, like, the FX of Dune, the prop making of Dune, the designing of costumes. So it was just, like... I don't know, it was really cool, and I love the look of the Bene Gesserit women, which I think I've kind of showed the group before, just mostly bald women. But I really want to show you the Spacing Guild, because I found it. The Spacing Guild outfits are made out of used body bags.
What? I
don't know who it was. I don't know if it's the costume designer. But they were like, we went to police departments, fire departments, grabbed like a few hundred body bags. We did have to clean them out. And they made the Spacing Guild outfits out of them, which just look like inflated. You think of like a puffy jacket, but just like full body, like robe style.
So interesting.
And it's got some very cool visuals, and it's been very fun. And holy shit, Rutha is so fucking hot in this movie. We get to see him in part 2, but they're going more of a route with like bald, hairless dude. But Fade Rutha is genuinely just sexy. And the picture I just showed you, which is he comes out of like a shower and he's got like this weird like eagle waist piece, was supposed to be shot in the nude, and I've never been more upset for a different direction in a movie. We could have got a nude version of this. But yeah, no, I love that movie. I think you should watch it.
It looks very Bon Jovi.
He's very cool, and he's much more like the books. So I'm interested to see how the new movie does him, because they definitely have taken some interesting turns with some of the other characters. And even though he should have been in the first movie, I don't know why they didn't have him in the first movie. We see him now. So that's been one of my weekly obsessions, just because we're very excited to watch the second part. My other weekly obsession... God, I'm so tired. My other weekly obsession has been... You remember me talking about Famous, right?
Yes.
The rapper. I've been listening to one of her songs named Get In There. Get In There! Great song. I love that song because it's rap, but it's a slower beat, but it's more of like a boom, 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 boom.
Oh, okay.
And it makes... The beat is ever so similar, and the way she does the lyrics is ever so similar to Get Up Off of That Thing. Get up off of that thing and shake what you do, man. Up.
Copyright.
It's just 5 seconds so they won't copyright us. But yes, they're ever so similar enough that I hear her song and I'm like, not only do I think of that song, I think of Robots, and I just love the movie Robots. I
sent you that that video, right? Where it's basically like, I hate watching movies. There, I said it. The cinema died when at Robots, and has been downhill ever since.
No, but I will need to find it.
Cinema peaked at Robots and has been downhill ever since. The only exception has been Puss in Boots 2 and fucking Miles Morales movies.
I still need to see Puss in Boots 2.
They're good.
Wow, that's going to put me on 6 different tangents. 1, I crave playing the Robots GameCube game. Holy shit.
There's a Robots GameCube game?
Grew up on it.
Oh my god.
And you play as Rodney Copperbottom, and you get to have, like, cool guns, and it's kind of platformy, and you get to explore, like, each locations they're in the movie.
There's guns?
You get, like scrap guns. It's like Ratchet and Clank, where you collect bolts. And it's like... From what I remember, you have scrap guns, but he also fights with the Ratchet.
Oh.
And, like, you start in the town, then you get to, like, there's the whole subway you can go around in. God, I love that game. Crave it. Another tangent. You mentioned Miles Morales and Puss in Boots 2. I've heard from a lot of people that Kung Fu Panda 4 is an absolute garbage movie, and it saddens me.
Yeah, from the trailer, I kind of expected that.
Yeah. It has ayahuasca. I think that's her name.
Because it really didn't have the same charm. And I didn't really know where the story could go from there for Poe.
The first 3 movies,
wonderful.
Fantastic.
Wonderful movies.
Love them dearly. I'm looking up her name. There's an actress who is just bad, and any movie she's in is just bad.
There's some hot claims right now.
It's not a hot claim because culturally we don't like her.
Then why do they keep putting her in movies?
Because she's kind of the God, how can I explain her? She's the, like... Holy shit, what's his name? Adam Sandler. I'm trying to think of other actors. Like, regardless of how good the movie is, they continually just weirdly get more movies. Like,
okay, yeah.
I'm
Adam
trying to
Sandler,
think of other actors.
Fucking, Wolfdale. No, not Wolfdale. Who am I thinking of? I don't know.
Will Ferrell?
Will Ferrell.
Yeah, where it's like, God, they can have like 6 movies bomb in a row, and next year they're coming out with a new movie, and they're starring in it. It's Awafina, I think is how you pronounce her name.
I wouldn't know. Movies are not my thing.
She voices a lot, and she's kind of got a
track record.
A track record of being a hip hop star who's not good at it.
That's
And there's the slight debate of, like, she grew up in the Bronx, or she grew up in New York at least. Chinese American, who kind of touches the line of gang, like trying to be like that kind of black rapper and like that kind of funny, and you're like, it doesn't work, and it feels not real and not genuine.
What other things has she been in?
A lot.
Yeah?
Weird. She voices so many movies, and they're always really bad. And she voices the main character in Poe 4, the little weird Jack Rabbit, whatever it is, and it's not good.
Isn't the Kung Fu Panda movie supposed to be about Poe?
Oh, Poe's handing off the Dragon Warrior title to someone else.
That's the plot of the movie?
Yeah. That's the plot of Kung Fu Panda 4. Zen is the character's name.
They were wanting to... That's such a cash grab if I've ever heard of it.
She voices Scuttle in The Little Mermaids.
Like the live action one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The bad guys, she voices Miss Tarantula.
I don't know who that is.
Disney Plus. Shanghai, she voices Kathy. Raya and the Last Dragon, she voices Sisu. Jumanji The Next Level, she voices Ming. The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, The Collector. Angry Birds 2, she voices Courtney. The Simpsons, she voices Carmen and Dr. Chang in 2019.
Why is she just everywhere?
Crazy Rich Asians.
Asians.
Ocean's 8, Future Men, Storks, Neighbors 2. Yeah, like she's in a lot of stuff, but none of the movies she's in are ever good.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to look up her acting. It's oh my god. And no hate to her, but it's just one of those actresses / actors where it's like, why do you keep getting movies?
Mm-hmm.
Specifically when everybody doesn't like you. Like the way you act just is so fake. It
like
doesn't
Megan
feel
Fox
real.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, where it's like, and I'm trying to think. There's someone else. There's that one comedian lady. That's just not funny, and like always steals jokes.
Amy Schumer.
That's exactly who it is. That's kind of how it feels. Of just like, really. So, you mentioned the sequel of Cat Puss in Boots. And it just I think it was Saturday or Sunday.
What a tangent.
Oh, I love those movies. And on Saturday I got hit with just like the wall of people being like, this movie is horrible. And of course she's one of the main characters.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the fact that they're trying to make another movie where they're basically like, Poe is handing off the mantle so we can have 4 more movies.
Yeah.
It's like,
he got it 3 years ago, I think, or like not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he already handing it off?
It's a dumb premise, and it's just a cash grab.
There's such a weird scene where
just a cash grab.
Like all of the villains, like Tai Lung and Shang-Chi, is that the peacock's name?
I think something like that.
They're like all in like spiritual essence form. And Tai Lung is like, maybe you're not so bad after all, like bows down to him, and it's like, what?
That's not what. That just undermines the plot of all of those fucking movies.
Oh, I was so horribly wrong. Forgive me. Zen.
That's like
oh wait, no. Zen's the main character. Who the fuck is this person? Shen. Sorry, Shen, not Zen. Zen is our new character. Shen is the peacock.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't like the movie industry right now.
I don't like cash grabs. And that feels like a lot of things right now.
That's what it is.
Everything's
a cash grab.
Movies. Luckily, books are kind of a hard media to do cash grabs in. They're there, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But it is harder, I feel like, in my eyes, to
for sure.
do a cash grab.
I'm sure there will be people who will be like, you're fucking wrong, this book It's a total crash grab. It's so pitchy. It's like, yeah, well, yes.
Oh, yeah. Shen shows up in, like, the spirit realm, doesn't have a single line. It's just in the background, like,
why?
Bowing.
Why?
Because it's a bad movie.
No. Well, I already knew it was going to be a bad movie just based off the trailer I saw. I was like, this has no substance. Why is it here?
Oh my god, you know what it feels like? It feels like the new Megamind movie.
Are they making a new Megamind movie?
Megamind 2, we talked about it in the D&D group. We watched the trailer.
Dude.
It's so... It just is bad. The animation looks like it's from 2010. God.
Yeah, I remember now. It was tucked away in a place that, like, all the bad things go.
So
that's like resurfaced. Like, oh no. Anyhow, for my weekly obsession...
Oh, no, I have another one. I had 3, remember? My third weekly obsession is... now I'm going to have 4. My 4th weekly obsession is just prolonging you not talking. No, my 3rd weekly obsession, I finished The Black Talon. Nice. And now I'm on Red Claw. And holy shit. If you value anything in our friendship...
read those books.
Read those books. Because holy shit, it's like a beautiful mix of The Way of King and like a fast action paced assassin book. God.
Remind me Wednesday. Like, just send me like a text and I'll get the books on Audible and I'll listen to them.
They're free. The first 3 are free. You don't have to pay for them. I just bought the first book hardback.
I'll listen to them at work.
It's so good, and I finished the first book, and I think I finished it Friday, like, morning, because I had, like, 2 hours left. Mm-hmm. And I started the second book, I think, Saturday morning. Or maybe I did it Friday night, but I was like, God. It ends in such a cool way. The characters are cool. I haven't had any moment. I'm currently having a moment where I'm starting to not dislike it, but the author is holding on to a character's anger, I feel like, a little too much. And I think they're trying to set up something in the book, or will possibly explain it later. But it feels like, okay, where I'm on chapter 18, and she's still kind of angry about it. And she was angry about it in book 1. And it's like, it's not like, oh, I'm angry, I won't ever see this person again. It's like, she's angry with not our main character, but like another main character. It's like every conversation they have, it's brought up.
Really?
So I'm like, I'm getting to a point where I'm like, okay, this better resolve itself quick, otherwise it's going to get kind of annoying. Mm-hmm. But other than that, everything is so good. God.
All right.
You have to read those books.
I will give them a chance.
Because I need someone to talk to with, like, about it.
I will give them a chance, because I understand that feeling.
Yes. Because I gave Way of Kings a chance.
Fair enough.
I gave it a good chance.
You did.
And that book is fucking long.
It's a long book. I still need to listen to Words of Radiance.
I'm going to get back into it in the summer. I really want to...
That's a good point.
I don't know if I want to reread Way of Kings. I do, but I don't. It's such a long book. Mm-hmm. I might reread, like, the last...
I'm sure there's some, like, a good summary we can get off of YouTube or something.
I might reread the last, like, 200-300 pages to, like, refresh myself and then start Way of Kings again. Because I own Way of Kings, or Word of Radiance now, like a physical copy.
I own it as well. Apparently, listening to the audio and then also reading it is like a wonderful experience.
I did that with Twilight. I listened to it and read it, and it's very fun. And, God! Michael Kramer and his wife, Kate Readings, who voices Way of Kings and who voices the Black Talon, I dream of meeting them.
Give them a firm handshake when I do.
Because holy shit, I'd love for them to sign Way of Kings.
That would be amazing.
Because, God, we don't get a lot of Kate Readings. Her range in Way of Kings. Like, she voices kind of the main character, Shallan, and everyone else, obviously.
We get more of that with Words of Radiance.
And
it's interesting.
And there's not a lot of, like, difference. her voice acting and her range within the Black Talon, because she plays so many like varied characters, and because the two perspectives kind of, we get them in the same times usually, where like we see his perspective only like a second later, and then chapter 2 we get her perspective at the same time, so they voice the same characters. They both do such a beautiful job, and I've seen her, she pops off in Black Talon, like holy shit. I was like, I hope we get this in Word of Radiance, because the way she can fluctuate, and we hear loudness and softness, and we hear the gruff of like what deep male voices are supposed to be like.
Once we get into, because I'm further along in Words of Radiance than you are, once you get to the Parshendi, it is interesting, the range that she gives.
It's beautiful, and it kind of sucks that we had to get so long into that series to get to her, because we get it quickly into Black Talon. I absolutely love those two.
Heard.
I don't even know where they're from.
Who knows?
All right, talk about your weekly obsession. I'm tired of you.
But like, what? I haven't said anything about anything, and you're like, I'm already tired of you.
I think Nerds could be a solo podcast.
It absolutely could not. I'd like to see you try.
Oh, it's not like we get much attention anyways.
I know.
Alright, hit me with it.
So, my weekly obsession for this week is I have been watching it's another YouTuber. I've been watching a YouTuber called CDogVA.
Okay.
Or Connor, as he's well known for. He's part of the Trash Taste podcast, if you know what that is.
No.
So, specifically, I've been watching a lot of his VODs of like streams that he's done and everything. I watched him get through a series called Fear and Hunger.
Okay.
Which is a series. So there's Fear and Hunger 1 and Fear and Hunger 2. Fear and Hunger 1 is the one I watched specifically, but then Fear and Hunger 2 I kind of skimmed. It is a RPG Maker game that has the art style of Berserk.
Ooh.
And it is brutal. Like, grimdark kind of brutal type setting.
Okay.
But it's really fucking interesting. So, you go in, like, the main characters go into the dungeon of Fear and Hunger, and you choose one of the 4 main characters, at least in the first game, to go into that dungeon. And it's set in medieval, like, times as well. And they all have their own, like, personal stories and reasons why they're going into the dungeon. But it is so, like, brutal and gross and just dark to where it's interesting. You know, there's like...
This is a video game?
This is a video game. Where you're wanting to just see where things lead. You know? Part of the game's combat, which is a turn-based like RPG combat, is you don't just like hit the attack button and your character attacks. You have to select where you're attacking for the enemies that you're fighting. So if somebody's got like a big club in their arm, in their right hand, you need to attack that because that's where their main source of damage. So you attack it and you hack off their arm.
Love it.
You can also hack off their legs, and a lot of them have their genitals out, so you hack off their genitals. You know, and they all have different effects to what you do.
What's the game called?
Fear and Hunger.
Is this a new game, or...?
No, this is a game that's been out for a while. But it's starting to get like a cult classic following.
I've never heard of it before.
It's wild.
It looks gorgeous.
It is a gorgeous game. It also has a little bit of like D&D elements where there's chance. So there's a coin flip mechanic. Where when you open a chest, go to sleep and stuff like that, you have to flip a coin and you have to guess either heads or tails. once the coin is flipped, if you don't make it, sometimes your chest will be empty. You get ambushed while you sleep. Like stuff like that happens. If you succeed, then you'll find actual like good stuff. You'll be able to save and sleep and all that. So
I'll definitely have to give this a look.
It's
because it looks really cool.
It's really cool. It's rough. I
love this art style.
It's beautiful. It's so reminiscent of Berserk, which is one of my favorite like mangas out there.
It gives Berserk an old Castlevania.
Yes.
Like the way they draw, like not in the game, not like the pixel art, but the actual like art concept of that like incredibly thin, pale, gaunt, like almost kind of angelic look to some of these characters. But it's very dark. It's
very cool. And then Fear and Hunger 2 is set around the time of like World War II.
Oh shit.
So it's the same world, but 200 years in the future. And you have 9 playable characters at this point.
Damn.
And they all kind of get mixed up into this like battle royale for the old gods.
Interesting.
And it again, everyone has their own personal ways of playing it and ways of go, and personal reasons why they're there.
Mm-hmm.
But Fear and Hunger 2 gets weird. It gets real weird.
Are they long games?
Not necessarily. They can be very long just because the difficulty is very brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And like the endings can be obscure because you need to like there are games that have multiple endings, and you have to have like specific things that you do within the game to get like certain endings.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main endings, just to kind of spoil, you can find in the first game, you can find a little girl who's trapped in a cage.
Mm-hmm.
You free her, and she really doesn't do much. Like, she doesn't attack well or anything like that, but she will join your party.
Mm-hmm.
You can find a knife, and you can give her a knife, and then she starts, like, actually attacking.
Yeah.
But if you have her throughout the entire game and get to the end of Fear and Hunger, through the dungeons and everything, and she's still alive, she is the final boss.
Oh, shit.
She turns into the god of fear and hunger, because that's all she's ever known.
Is fear and hunger.
That's
really
hunger.
Cool.
And she morphs into this like eldritch-looking, terrifying beast, and it's fucking cool. Anyway, this was about Conor Dog, but it turned into Fear and Hunger.
Wait, who?
Sea Dog VA.
Sea Dog VA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna type the name in.
He's the one I've been watching who's played it. But they're
Sea Dog VA.
Yeah.
Damn, 6-hour video.
Mm-hmm.
I fuck with it.
It's good. Like it's a solid game. It doesn't tell you much at all, so you have to play it to like learn its mechanics as well. Mm-hmm. There's a hunger mechanic, obviously, mind mechanic. It's interesting. It's one of those games where like I would want to sink my teeth in, but I don't know if I could get very far, you know?
It's one of those games I don't think we see ever now, and I think it was very much more popular back then, of the developers and the people who made the game couldn't give a shit about making it public, of like wanting this to be an easy game for people to pick up. They built a game for people who, when they do get into it and do enjoy the world, will
really
spend thousands of hours into it. Like, we don't get those games much anymore. I feel like every game that comes out has to be marketed to everybody in the public, and we don't get these small games where it's like, other than like obviously indie games, which this game very much seems like it, but it's like, well, I couldn't care if the public liked it, and it's incredibly difficult. We're not going to tell you much about it. You just have to play it, and if you enjoy the game, you're going to enjoy the game.
Fear and Hunger 2 apparently is easier. It's like easier to get into. It still doesn't explain as much, but apparently it like actually is a little more cohesive and easier to just kind of figure out.
Yeah.
So I might get that because they're cheap games as well. They're very cheap games.
I love that.
So I might just grab Fear and Hunger 2 and try it out. And
absolutely.
Let you know next week how that goes.
Oh my god, that'd be so cool. I have been wanting something to like watch because I just don't have any. Like I tried watching Nier Automata again, like a walkthrough of it, and I was like, I want something new. So
well, there you go.
I haven't pulled up.
There you go.
Alright, are you done with your fucking 60 exceptions?
I don't know where...
You just had so much.
I don't know where this attitude has come from. I understand you're tired, but you gotta stop busting my balls over here.
This attitude has lived in me since day one of knowing you. I don't know why you thought it's ever gone. Quite literally, is a part of me.
No, I know.
It's cool. So your weekly obsession is the YouTuber, not the game?
It's more the game.
Okay.
But it has been, Connor plays it very well. There are definitely, he's a young streamer who gets called Monkey a lot because he sometimes overlooks the most simple things, and I find it funny.
That's just YouTubers, though.
Yeah. But he definitely, there's a few times where I'm like, Connor, really? He's also British, so that's fun.
Oh, huh.
And his voice is very nice. He obviously has voice acted before. He doesn't do it much anymore. Mm-hmm. But he actually directed some voice acting stuff and like did really well. But,
interesting.
That's a topic for another time.
My cat, or my bestie's cat, looks like she could be painted into a gothic horror.
She looks like a gargoyle.
Picture. Yeah, like the way she's sitting just looks like if this was oil painted in like a creepy mansion, I'd be like, that's a fucked up cat.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, something happened to that cat. The first comment on Connor's playthrough of Fear and Hunger is, so, ... from all the turn-based RPGs, Connor chose the one with anal bleeding status. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that just sums up, I think, who I'm about to find out, the game I'm about to watch.
Yep. Honestly.
How both of them are supposed to be.
It gets dark. Like, the amount of stuff that the characters go through is wild. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting. The lore of it is all incredibly interesting. Because it's all about gods and just what those gods actually do.
Interesting.
So,
I guess we'll report back next week.
Yeah, I guess so. I'll try it out. I'll see how it goes.
Well, that's all for me.
Get into the actual topic today. Do your job, monkey.
No. So yeah, we were talking about my favorite and different types of introductions we see within video games and books.
Yes.
We're not talking about movies because I just really couldn't think about any of the movies, nor how they start. And a lot of movies don't start very crazily. They usually start very slowly. Usually with like establishing shots, or you have to kind of dig into certain types of movies to be like, they're starting in the middle of action.
Unless they're sequels to other movies, then it's like...
You have to establish everything before. For some reason, video games and books don't follow that rule, and we'll talk about some of them that just throw you in the middle of something.
Yes.
I have a few rhetorical questions. What is a thing being introduced, or how does a thing being introduced help or hurt said thing? Because that's the big struggle, especially if you're a writer. How do I introduce said thing? If it's my world, if it's my book series, my video game, how does something being introduced help or hurt it?
Well, I know it's a rhetorical question, but there has to be a balance of, especially when it comes to like video games and movies and stuff, there has to be a balance of enough explanation of the world that the reader understands, but also the characters do. Enough characterization for the characters to make them seem interesting and complex, as well as enough world building and setting to make the world seem interesting that you're about to delve into.
Absolutely. If you don't have... I have an example of a really bad one, and we'll talk about it in a quick second. If you don't have many of those things, the one thing that can save a bad intro is good game feel.
That is true.
Like, if a game doesn't tell you much, doesn't really give you a playable character, or, like, doesn't really give you a very interesting character, and this is specific with video games, because books are a separate thing, it has to feel good to play. Because then you're going to keep playing it, regardless of story. And if you don't got any of those, and the game also is kind of shitty to play, that's a hard thing to get through.
That is very true.
Dragon Dogma was that for me. The world wasn't very interesting. Yeah. We didn't really get much about the person. It felt very random. And then the game was kind of rough to play through. And I hit like 6 hours into it, and I was like, I'm done. Like, I truly don't have a desire to play this anymore.
I wanted to so badly to get into Dragon's Dogma, because I want a game like that so bad, where it's like Monster Hunter, it's like Witcher, where I'm going out, I am fighting big monsters, I have a team of characters that I can create and have fun with, you know? Because my dream in any video game is to make a team of me and my friends where we all go and have wacky adventures. Yeah. God, did Dragon's Dogma just not deliver.
And it was so difficult because I didn't, like, they don't explain hardly any of the mechanics. The mechanics are shitty in general.
So bad.
Like, that was a game where I was like, okay, the intro was kind of meh, and now the world feels meh to play in. I
know a lot of people really like that game.
And you're wrong. You're straight up wrong. It's a shitty game.
I'm looking forward to see what Dragon Dogma 2 has to offer, because from what I've seen of it so far...
Are they remastering it?
No, there's the sequel to Dragon's Dogma coming out soon.
Oh, shit, like coming out?
Yeah, like they had like a whole trailer with it and everything, so it should be coming out sometime this year. So I'm looking forward...
I hope.
I have hope, because just from what I've seen of it, it looks really cool. And apparently the idea of the Dragon's Dogma's game in general is there's not really a story. The story is what you make through the adventure, right?
Which I hate, because if I'm going to play a game, there has to be a story. Regardless of, like, at that point, it's just an open sandbox. And that's not what we're paying for. Like, I don't care if the story isn't super relevant, because I've played some games where it's been like, okay, the story's kind of loose, but you can kind of do what you want. But going with the premises of, like, well, you just kind of make your own story, and, like, you're just there. I think we hear that a lot in D&D. Of just, well, there isn't really a main plot for this campaign. It's just you guys hanging out. That doesn't work. People need something to go for.
There's gotta be structure.
It's supposed to release March 21st in 10 days.
Okay, heard. God, man, I'm too busy. I can't play all these games.
I'm not gonna lie. Looks really cool. There's this. I'll show you. There's a screenshot of it. Looks like an archer shooting like magical lightning arrows.
Yeah. Like, from what I've seen of it, it looks good.
Damn, they are fucked up if they're charging $70 though.
Oh god. Yeah, nah. I'm waiting on a sale then.
Because it ain't gonna be that good. I can guarantee. Well, maybe. I'll give it hope. The first game was not good.
I'll see what the public says of it, and then we'll come at it. And, yeah.
Because that was the game where I just struggled to get through. And I'm trying to think of other games that just had rough intros and then couldn't back it up with gameplay.
God.
It's always hard to remember bad games.
Because most of the time bad games are forgettable.
Yeah.
Rough intros that just weren't good. I can't.
It's hard to think about them. And I know there's games that I've like played that I'm just like, this isn't good. I will say, a game that does come to mind with a not so good. No, that didn't have a terrible intro. Way of Flames?
I have no clue.
No. There's a game that's something with flames, and it's a kind of a it's like Dragon Dogma, it's like Dragon Age. It's like, you play as a character, the demons are there. It had a good premise. I just don't think it was paced well or the story was very good. And it's made from a very small company. So, like, the voice acting is kind of weird. But it had enough substance for me to, like, want to keep playing it.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized I have it on my thing. Bound by Flame.
Bound by Flame, okay.
But it hooked me with the interestingness of you get possessed with a fire demon. And so you kind of go through that story. So I was like, okay, it's enough for me to kind of want to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And the gameplay wasn't terrible. Kind of think of like Dark Souls 2. That kind of slightly janky Dragon Age Inquisition where you have a party you can switch out.
I know what you
So it's like, it had some good elements. And the story was okay enough for me to kind of keep going.
I know a game, now this is just personal, but a game that I thought had a really fun intro, and I was really excited to get into. But then once I got into it, I was like, this is not for me. Was Outer Worlds, or...
Yeah, I think
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
With the big moon mask.
Outer Worlds.
Yeah, something like that. Not for me. The intro was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a scientist dude is like, you know, disregarding corporation stuff to go in and save you from this, like, you know, you out of 1 in a million, you know, subjects that are there, you should get shipped down into a planet that's, you know, got this corporation stuff going on. What I really don't like about it, the combat feels fine. The worlds just feel so empty to me. And I have no interest in playing in a sci-fi cyberpunk corporation stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that's just not my interest.
Yeah.
So...
Opposite of that, though, because that's sci-fi, that's space sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
2 examples I think that do the opposite, really good intros that are sustained with gameplay. Helldivers 2.
Absolutely.
Literally what you just said of corpo sci-fi. It is, they hook you with the intro, the gameplay feels beautiful. Like, that was a game where I was like, holy shit, the introduction, the tutorial makes you want to just keep running into the game. Like, just keep going and
you gotta work for democracy and Super Earth and, you know, independence.
Yeah.
You know?
And then, I don't have it on this list because I've watched a lot of it. I don't know enough about it to really give my full opinion, and it's something I want to get into later. Not later in this episode, but like later in this year. I really enjoyed the intro to...
Blanking on it now. There's gonna be so many like times where we pause because we've blanked on stuff this episode.
Holy shit. What is it called?
If you could tell what our week has been, folks.
Oh, Starfield.
Yes.
I enjoyed the intro of Starfield. I enjoyed the premise of it. I'm watching someone who has played the game before, so it makes it much more enjoyable. It is similar to what I said with Hunger and Fear.
Fear and Hunger.
Fear and Hunger of... It's a game where if you don't like it, you're not going to like it. If you love it, you're going to spend hours upon hours in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's... I don't know. I want to play it for myself eventually because it's one of those I was like, I'd have to see how it actually plays compared to watching someone because the intro was really cool. You start in a mining accident. You come across an artifact that, like, you get vision. I'm like, this is a really cool introduction. It's a hook to something more within the universe than just space sci-fi.
Yeah.
But going to our actual list, I'm going to run through the different types of intros we see. And then we'll talk about each one because I have examples for each one. Books and books and games.
I also have a couple of examples coming to mind.
Yeah.
So
this is mostly just going to be us discussing.
Yeah.
The first introduction we see is Heavy Plot, where a book or a game just introduces the world with just a whole exhibition.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So that's one. There is the... This is mostly as in books. I think Ninja Gaiden kind of does that. But that's a different one. I have no idea. Of just, you start reading the book and you're like, I have no fucking idea what is happening.
We're just dropped in the middle of it.
Not even like in the middle of something important. It's just, you threw me in a world where you are acting like I should know everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Very common with sci-fi books.
Yep.
Then we have In the Fray, which is starting off just in the fray of something, which I'm excited with. I have a small kind of subcategory, but I found eventually a different one, which is Danger, which is they don't start in the fray, but the characters are eventually put in danger a little bit later into the introduction. That you have enough time to kind of get introduced, and then eventually it's into danger, and it usually resolves itself. I have Ease In, so books or games that ease you into the story, and then I have Something Went Wrong, and there's two subcategories to this. You don't know what went wrong, or it's 'cause of external shit.
Yeah.
I have those two where it's like something went wrong. Either you don't know what happened, or you know the cause of it, but it's something you can't really do anything about. Any of those you want to start with? Any of those that seem fun?
Oh boy. I think we just go down the list, honestly.
Okay. Can you name one thing I said?
There's Ease In.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just... So you want Ease In for 600?
Sure.
Okay. This book coined, or made... I don't fucking know. Okay, starting with plot. The two I have are Dark Souls and Diablo.
Okay, I heard.
Both games that start with massive exposition.
Yep.
Dark Souls, known for just the beautiful cinematic intro of just,
Yes, indeed.
Like this whole thing of just, here's the world, here's everything I'm explaining. And Diablo, at least 3 does that also, of just, here's everything, and then when you get to gameplay, there's not really any, explaining. You're just kind of in it. Do you have any...
Of exposition ones?
Expositions. Some of these are a little harder for each time. Books kind of rarely start exposition wise because you get into that.
In terms of good exposition intros that I've seen, you can't beat Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Elden Rings is phenomenal.
But that's just the
from soft games. Lies of P has a very fun intro.
Yeah.
Where it basically explains what happens and then drops you in.
That, in a sense, is just a Souls-like game.
But I feel like those are the ones that do it the best.
Well, they are, because it's a world where purposefully you aren't given the plot of the story. You're not given someone being like, hey, you're here because of this, because of this. You don't get the Legend of Zelda of Ganon's in the castle and he's destroying the world for 1,000 years. They do the exposition in the cutscene because when you start the game, you're just there. That's what makes FromSoft and specifically ISPs so beautiful. Of just, here's exposition so we don't have to spend time talking to you about it. Just get into it.
I agree.
Moving on, I have no idea. My two are Dune and Revelation Space.
Good ones.
Both books start in a world where they just refuse to explain anything. Halfway through Revelation Space, I'm like, I still have fucking no idea what we're doing here. I don't know any things you've said. I don't know who these people are. I'm lost. And I don't know. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, but I also hate it that sci-fi authors just love that trope of just, here's the first book, and I refuse to tell you anything about it. You're just going to have to pick up on context clues 3/4 the way through it. And there are a few games that do that.
Oh, absolutely. I have a game that comes to mind immediately. It's not a very well-known game, and I kind of have to look it up because I don't remember exactly what it's called. But if you remember the early days of Fallout, where it's more the isometric type games, it's similar to that, but instead of a post-apocalyptic Fallout, the world has basically turned into giant bloody meat. Like, everywhere. It is just everywhere. And it gives you a little bit of exposition, but then basically just drops you off as you were once part of this basically hive mind of people. But then you caught some kind of disease that the AI of the hive mind was basically like, all right, shoving you off. So you wake up in a facility, you exit out of a pod, and immediately your character just throws up.
Shit.
And you walk around and you talk to the robots, and it's basically just like, yeah, so apparently you have some kind of disease in you, so the hive has decided to take you off because you're very much at risk of being here. You can never go back in there again.
Yeah.
But we're not just going to leave you defenseless. Here's, like, you know, the tutorial stuff, blah, 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 where you get to learn some stuff. But you don't have to do that. You can literally just walk out of the facility and into the world, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the plot that you have is you got to figure out what this disease is, and there's a town nearby. You find a flesh kraken that you talk to. It's wild.
You'll have to find the name of it.
I'll look it up here soon. But it's a good one, and it's definitely one of those like, what the
fuck is happening? I don't understand anything.
You meet a naked old man at the very beginning who's out there just being like, I'm dancing. It's just like, what are you doing? The power within. But he's literally just a dancing old. He's literally like, check out my moves, and just does a little dance, and he's just like, what do you think? And you're just like, who are you?
Yeah, no, I love those kind of intros. They are only for the strong.
Yes.
I have no idea intros really cull out the weak, which I don't know if it's a purposeful thing, but it kind of makes, and I don't know how the intro of Hunger and Fear is.
Fear and Hunger,
but it feels like a game that would just kind of start, and you're like,
yes.
I have no idea what's happening, and either I'm strong enough to keep going, or I'm like, I have to put this down.
That's exactly what kind of game that is.
And yeah, space, or at least sci-fi books, love to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if I move on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Next we have In the Fray, which usually starts in the fray of combat. Honorable mention, I think Ninja Gaiden would be a great one for this.
Yes.
Because those games like to start with you. I have some of these bolded. I was going to talk about some of my favorite ones. Dark Souls, obviously, is one of my favorite intros of all time. The first game will forever hold something deep within my heart.
Absolutely.
Every time I get a new set of headphones, how I test them is playing the Dark Souls 1 intro. I put that on, I crank up the music, and I'm like, how well does this sound?
The Dark Souls games, just
gorgeous.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Alright, In the Fray. I'm gonna need your attention because we're gonna talk about something. Unless you found it.
Well, I was pulling it up. Is why I was.
I figured you were looking for it.
Yeah, it's in my Steam, so I was looking in my Steam.
Oh.
Though I can't get into my library.
Okay, we'll look it up after.
We'll look it up here soon. Yeah.
The next one has two of our favorite medias.
Mm-hmm.
I would wager to say, The Way of Kings.
Absolutely.
Starts with a very In the Fray. Would you like to give the opening sentence?
Gladly. Zes son Villano, truthless of Genevar, wore white the day he was meant to kill a king.
In the first chapter, he does kill that king!
It is one of the most badass fights that I've ever seen. Or witnessed, or read.
Yeah. If you haven't already and you enjoy suffering, read Way of Kings.
Please. Please.
But it starts out in the fray. Like, it doesn't technically start out with, like, Zeth fully in the fray, but quite quickly does he begin to start assassinating and killing people. Like, it's a book that sets the tone of just this entire series, and God, I love that book so much.
So good.
And I sometimes re-listen to the intro because it's such a powerful, like, you don't know any of the lore, you don't know any of the people, you don't understand the meaning behind any of this,
Mm.
and you're just in the fray of an assassination, and you're like, holy shit.
And it's so... Because you get exposition while you're also going in, because Zeth is like, thinking about, well, why did the Parshendi make me think of, you know, you want me to do this, and blah, 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 blah.
Like, I hate how...
But they have his truth stone. You're like, what do you mean they have his truth stone? It's like, so he has to follow their orders.
And then, what's the culture of people that Galnar's...
Dalinar?
No. Well, they rule. It starts with
Dalinar. Oh, what do they call it?
Like, it's been just too long,
Yeah.
I'm forgetting parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, Zeth is like, oh, I don't like how the culture of the king uses, like, a very sacred thing to me, the Stormlight, as just candles.
Yes.
And, like, but
no, it's stone. Just stone.
Well, stone, but he also just doesn't like the fact that the Stormlight is just strewn about like nothing.
And then, Zeth is from Shinovar, obviously, and they're
obviously
Truthless of Shinovar.
Yeah.
But their whole thing is they're such outliers because they actually come from like grass and soil and stuff. Yeah. So stone is actually pretty sacred to them, and they believe stone and stuff like that. So one of the first things you hear Zeth kind of mention is like, can't believe I'm walking through this entire place filled with stone and no one is like
if I wasn't truthless already, like this would damn me.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a great introduction to that book. And it's one of those intros where you just keep going.
It's so good.
You finish chapter 1 and you're like, what's next? What's next?
And there's so many twists and turns within it as well.
I think isn't chapter 2 Kaladin in the slave cart?
Yeah.
Like, you start almost immediately after then with such a... Okay, we're in a completely different setting.
No, chapter 2 is...
What's chapter 2?
Chapter 2 is the young kid who was part of Kaladin's group that he was trying to save.
Oh, Sam?
Through his perspective. Yeah, something like that. And then that just abruptly ends, and then the next chapter goes into Kaladin's on a slave cart, and we're like, who? What? Why?
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, we started as like a 15-year-old boy fresh in the army, and then he's plucked away from his platoon to be given into someone else's. You see one of our main three characters, Kaladin, from a third perspective, and it's like, holy shit, this is the story. And then the next chapter is, well, Kaladin's on a slave cart, and it's been about a year later, and everyone he knows is dead.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
It's wild.
Like, you're just... That's why it's kind of my first example of just, you're in the fray of shit. Just... It's not, like... Sometimes it's combat, sometimes it's just like, whoa.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I found that game that we were talking about. It's called Death Trash.
That's not nice to call me.
It's pixel art, top down. Oh, it's freaky, and it's so cool.
Damn, I'm gonna have a lot to watch. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I see the flesh kraken.
Yeah,
my god, this is gonna be cool to watch. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Death Trash.
Death Trash.
Death Trash.
Very interesting game. I literally just saw it scrolling through Steam at one point, and I was like, oh my god, these visuals. I have to get this now. And then I dropped into the world, and I was like, this is super fun. It's Souls-like combat. Down on an asymmetric kind of world where you're world traversing like you would in the older Fallout games, where it just zooms out in the map, and then you go to specific locations.
It looks super cool. It's like, it's not completely top down. It's that like really pulled back, almost over the shoulder, top down.
Yeah, like angled. Isometric is what we usually call it, I think.
I did not know that. It looks really cool though. All right, continuing on. Another that was a book. Way of Kings is a book. A game. The next two games. Last of Us. Ooh. Last of Us just starts us in the fray of the beginning of a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, it's not danger, it's not something it could be classified as something went wrong, but the whole point of being in Sarah's perspective is just, you're in the fray now of a literal birthing zombie apocalypse. What do you do? And then after the intro, you cut to Joel 20 years
after Sarah
dies, and you're kind of once again in the fray of just like, and I'd almost tie it a little bit to the I have no idea like plot, like introduction, because they don't really tell you much. They give it in like news descriptions.
Once you get past it and then you start going in, they give you some exposition.
Yeah.
But I mean, the main focus is mostly like Joel and Ellie's like story. So I don't blame them.
And you're kind of just like thrown in like, well, it's been 20 years after the world has stabilized in a sense with like headquarters and places. But like, yeah, you're just kind of thrown in, and it's such a beautiful intro.
It's very good.
Yeah, wonderful.
I love that game. Love that game.
The next game that also starts in the fray, Devil May Cry games.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of those games are always like,
oh my god, Dante just destroying in Devil May Cry 3.
Dante just being like sitting in a chair eating pizza, and then like 6 demons pop in. You're like, well, combat started.
And then they all stab him, and then he's just like, well, this is an inconvenience. Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah. just starts going off.
Immediately in the fray of shit.
Oh, it's so good.
And one of my favorites is the DMC Devil May Cry.
Yes.
Because you're like naked in a trailer, and it's like all the demons bust through the windows, and like the trailer's flipping, and you like slip on your pants, and then you're like, alright, you know, classic Dante kind of shit. But yeah, those games.
Well, different Dante, but
it's still a classic Dante thing. The arrogance, just because he looks different doesn't mean he's.
No, he acts a bit different too. He's a lot more vulgar and kind of a shithead.
I guess.
He is.
But it's not much different than. I mean, classic Dante is less vulgar, yes. But they still, in the core mechanics of who they are essentially the same. One is just more of a smooth talker, one is just more of a shit talker. It doesn't really change the personality. They are.
I would disagree, but we don't have to go into it.
Okay. You can disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 3 I have. Danger was kind of a fun one where... Oh, there's another one. It just hit my brain, but a book series that I've talked to you about, which is also kind of niche, of Legends of the Dragon Realms, which is what I base my D&D world off of.
Mm-hmm.
The first chapter of the book starts with our main character working at an inn, and then like a dragon duke comes, picks him up. You learn that it's the actual Dragon King, the Brown Dragon King, and he takes him to his land and is about to kill him.
Yep.
Like it's not combat. It's not like you don't know what's happening. It's explained very clearly to you of like, well, I'm about to kill you because my world is desolate, or at least my land is desolate, and it's supposedly your blood is gonna like fix that, like break the curse.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they're in the middle of the desert, and the Baron, or not the Baron, I was thinking of Dune and desert. The brown dragon just falls dead with like a sun arrow, and you're like, what? Like, you're just in danger, and our main guy's like, I don't know what's happening, and I know that if I don't leave, I'm about, like, something bad is going to happen, because everyone's going to come rushing, and so, it's just that feeling of danger. I will say, another game that I can think of, Lost Planet kind of starts like that.
I don't know that one.
It's not really like you start essentially in a hallway and you get attacked. And it's kind of in the fray, but it slows down much easier. Like, you actually start with like walking down the hallway with like a couple of your other like mech companions, and it's like, all right, we're heading here. Like, they fully explain the stuff of like, all right, this warehouse is getting attacked, and you're kind of going through, like, you're in danger, but there's no real threat feeling.
Yeah.
It's more just, okay, I can get my character is supposed to be in danger, so, like, I'm going through the tutorial kind of thing. Next we have Eason, which is kind of one of my favorites. I have classically Lord of the Rings. A beautiful example of an author that eases into the world. You start in the Shire, you start with like Bilbo and Frodo.
I would also argue exposition. There's a lot of exposition in Lord of the Rings.
Not the first half. Like, the first paragraph, or like the first chapter is just Bilbo planning his birthday. Like, we get exposition later when, like, Gandalf eventually comes, but he really does a beautiful job of just, like, well, Bilbo's planning his 111th birthday party, and...
After you get through a bunch of the, like, names of the hobbits that are around in Hobbiton and stuff like that, there's not, like, a whole big world exposition, but there's exposition.
But that's what plot is, though, is the... If Lord of the Rings started with... Now, the movies absolutely do start with the exposition.
Yes.
Of, like, there were 9 rings, and, like, 3 were given to blah, 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 and 7 to the men. Like, that... The movies do a much more plot-heavy exposition of, like, we are here to explain everything to you in a very small amount of time. The books fully do not. They start with just, you're in the Shire... and you don't know much after that. You kind of ease, and eventually Gandalf comes, and you start to learn more about the world, and then eventually the One Ring, and even Gandalf doesn't know what it is. But, like, the books really just ease you into it, and it's not really until you get to Aragorn does it start to really pick up. The movies are a little different. Peter Jackson took a little different, more of like, okay, let me explain the world before we get into it, which is the... 9 rings for men, 7, 3, and then the One Ring, and you get the battle with Sauron. Like, that's fully plot exposition. You just summed up the last 1,000 years for me in, like, 10 minutes. But yeah, God, I love the books.
They're great.
Because you're like, everyone is like, well, Lord of the Rings isn't a difficult read in any sense, but Tolkien has that way of him of like, okay, it's kind of weird. So I think he did a very good job, at least with the first book of Lord of the Rings, of like, let me introduce you to hobbits and like the Shire, and yeah, it's gonna be kind of funny and weird to be like, oh, this Shire, like this hobbit, I know they're this person, but it's not anything really complex. And even when Frodo, Pippin, Sam, and Merry leave the Shire, it still keeps a very, like, you don't really know much other than just they're going. They get to the creepy forest, and you're like, okay, maybe there's magic to this world. Then you meet Tom, and Tom kind of explains a bit more.
For sure.
But they really do a nice job of easing you into the world. The next 2 I also have as books. I will also say, a lot of video games do this. The ease-in sort of strat of just, welcome to the world, we're going to ease you into it, kind of talk a little bit about it, you get to a little gameplay, and then as we move on, we kind of get to the story. 2 books, The Novice, which I've talked a little bit about.
Yeah.
And the my favorite book series of all time, the Seven Realms series, The Demon King is the first one. Both start in very similar ways, which is our main character hunting. Of the novice is
very classic trope.
Yeah, kind of a classic trope. Both hunters, you get to kind of learn immediately that they have a fight for survival. They are naturally not gifted, but they've worked towards surviving off the land, and you get introduced a little bit to the characters, and then we get to kind of ease into, well, now show me what the world's about. And in The Novice, we get introduced to the city of Pelt and its kind of corrupt guards, and the kind of strictness and brutality of it. And in Demon King, I can't quite remember this capital's name, but we get introduced to both the tribe and the actual city itself, and kind of how our main dude's a gang lord. Like, we kind of ease into the plot by starting in an area that's not very threatening and has some fun to it. And then we get into this, okay, this is what this means, this is what that means. I do love the hunter trope. It's such a classic. It's a good trope. Because it sets up one of my favorite type of characters of, I've had to fight to survive. I had to fight to survive. I'm not just begging on the street, but I'm getting my own food. I have skills already, so I'm not being this like, I never shot a bow before. What's a sword? It's like, no, I've like hunted. I know how to kill. At least with Demon King, our dude's a gang leader, so he's like, he runs a bunch of urchin kids. it sets that really good background of a character of like, okay, I don't have to deal with you being like, how do I hold a sword?
Mm-hmm.
How do I fire a bow? We already can kind of run through that. Do you have any video games or books that?
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many.
There's
it's kind
so
of a
many.
classic.
One that immediately comes to mind is Final Fantasy VII.
Mm-hmm.
Its intro, super iconic. I'm sure. Have you seen any of it?
I've never watched a Final Fantasy or touched one.
It's beautiful. So Final Fantasy VII, its intro starts with you are just seeing stars for like a good minute. You're just seeing stars, and they're moving around through a galaxy. And then suddenly those stars begin to move in, and instead of them being stars, they're particles of Mako.
Oh.
As we're seeing one of the main characters, Aerith, crouching down within a sewer drain, and she's seeing like plant life.
Gorgeous.
In this like urban kind of alleyway. She gets up and starts moving out into the city proper and looks up into the sky, and you can see her design is so like anime inspired but also so classic. It's beautiful. I have to show you it after. I'm sorry, I have to. But it then, as she looks up into the sky, it then zooms out onto the entire city of Midgar. This massive, like, circular city with a huge Capitol building in the center.
Yeah. Incredible,
like, industrial big city. And the title card hits.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it's zooming back in, and there's flashes of a train moving in. And as the train pulls up, we see the main characters jump off the train and start fighting some guards. And you see the main character of it all, Cloud Strife, jump off, being called a merc. Hey, merc, get down here. He jumps off, and then you're just in it.
Yeah.
You go and you bomb a fucking Mako reactor. You start off as a fucking merc working with a terrorist organization, and it's wonderful.
So that's a two-parter. That's a cutscene. It's an ease in. I would definitely explain that as in the fray kind of though, because
for sure
start playing. But
it's a beautiful cutscene. Ease in though.
I don't know how I didn't write this down, and I hate myself for it. God of War 2018 is one of the most beautiful, just ease in. You're given no plot. It's just, Kratos with a hand on the tree. You cut it down, you pick it up. It's
Atreus is like, I got the boat ready.
Yeah,
let's go.
You're just slowly moving in. They really ease you into a completely new world.
And then you go in and do a funeral probably for your wife. And it's...
And you're like, where am I? Why does Kratos look different? Why does he have a wife? Who is his child?
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, it's beautiful.
You realize that child is his son.
Yeah.
God, we need to talk about God of War.
Okay, the next big one is Something Went Wrong, and I have two parts. We're gonna start with external shit, because You Don't Know What Went Wrong houses one of my two favorite games of all time. External shit, I have Black Talon as a book, because the first chapter starts with our main dude Cullen attempting to assassinate a noble, and he's like on top of a building. It's a bunch of nobles sitting together, and as he's about to throw the dagger and kill the noble, the one sitting next to him is hit with a crossbow bolt and dies. And then he kills the main dude, and it's like, what the fuck is happening? Why did he just die? Who killed him? And that's a great... And then we get kind of the reversal later in the book, but it's such a beautiful introduction.
Because you showed me that introduction.
Yeah.
That introduction is very much a... Like, it is a drop you into the heat of the moment intro as well.
Yeah.
As a what went wrong kind of intro.
Absolutely. And there's no plot explanation. You're in the fray of it, which... The only reason I didn't put it in the fray is because there's not really... combat. It's mostly him stealthing.
That's still in the fray though.
At times, but if there were things challenging him, that's what would be in the fray. That's kind of why I put Way of Kings there, because Zeth has to fight through the capital.
For sure.
Or through the city. Our main boy kind of just shadow teleports and then is about to throw a dagger, and then shit hits the fan. And he's like, what the fuck is happening?
Mm-hmm. I mean, he still gets the job done.
Oh, he does.
Mm-hmm.
He kills the dude, but it sets up the tone of like, what just happened? Like, something went wrong, and it was not me.
Mm-hmm.
It was something else. And then classically, Skyrim.
Yes.
Start as a horse thief?
No, you were illegally about to cross the border.
Okay. Someone else was a horse thief.
Yeah, that was Lokir of Rorikstead was the horse thief. I could recite that entire intro, but I will not. But yeah, that game has an incredible intro.
You start. I had a hard time because eventually I was like, okay, well, it's something else, and it's like, no. The actual intro is you get there, you're about to be executed, and then the external shit that happens is Alduin coming down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, something went wrong, and you have no control in fixing it.
Yep.
You just kind of have to be like, well, a dragon's attacking. I need to survive.
It's very interesting. Because I remember I was 10 years old when that game first came out, and I first played that intro. I know that intro is such a meme now, because everyone has played Skyrim to death. But when I was 10 years old and I first experienced the intro of Skyrim, I was blown away by how well it was and just how much it absorbed me. Because I was about to get executed, and then, I already started making allegiances with the Stormcloaks. Boo!
Yeah.
Because, I'm a kid. Love and
them.
I'm a kid and I'm like, oh, okay, so these guys were about to kill me, so I obviously got to work with the guys that weren't trying to kill me.
Yeah.
So
it's such a great intro, but it really just it throws you in a situation where you have no control over it, and it's just for obviously plot reasons. Hey, giant dragon comes down and is burning this building, like burning this town.
Yep.
And you're like, well, I gotta keep going.
Giant dragon time teleported into this town and just was like, all right, start burning stuff.
Yeah, and you're like, well, shit, something went wrong, I think.
Yeah, something went wrong. I mean, it went right for you because you survived, but it went wrong for that entire village.
I would love, and God, if I grew up, if I was like 20 when Skyrim first came out, I'd mod it and then give it to my younger brother, where the mod just actually has you being executed and the game ends. And then I go,
don't you love that game?
Yeah, I go,
game's great.
That's Skyrim for you, little bro. And just be like, what?
This game sucks.
You know how funny that would be? It's like, all right, we're sorry, but we do have to kill you. And it's like, okay. And you hear the dragon, and then you just see the axe come down, and it's just the end credits. It would be so funny.
So funny. That's such a troll way.
It would. Oh my god,
I would love that so much.
Okay, the next one is that you don't know what went wrong.
Yes.
And I have two examples. God, I love these games so much. Darksiders 1.
Yes.
Because that game, you play as War, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. You, in his eyes, are called down because the seals of the apocalypse are broken, and in his eyes, the apocalypse is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Gets there, has like his powers, is fighting some people. One of the main angels dudes, Abaddon, is like, you're not supposed to be here, what the fuck? And you're like, wait a minute. And then he starts to like kill a bunch of demons and angels, and
then he dies.
Well, his powers start being taken away with this like horn call, so you're like, what the fuck is happening? Something's taking my powers away. And then you get to the tutorial boss, Straga, and the angel quite clearly is like, you shouldn't be here, the seventh seal was not broken. And so you're like, what the fuck is happening? Why was I only called? None of this is making sense. None of it's explained to you. And then you fight Straga, he kills you, and you're brought back before the council, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, not in a bad way, but in a way of like, something went wrong, and you just genuinely don't know what went wrong.
And the council is blaming War for
causing the apocalypse, and he's
like, that's not what happened.
I answered the call. Like, I obviously wouldn't have done this alone. Where are my brothers and sister? And it's like this whole, like, it starts the whole game of, you're kind of immediately like, something's wrong
off
here, and you kind of slowly get that story as you play it. Beautiful game.
It's wonderful.
I didn't write it down, but actually now that I'm more thinking about it, weirdly the opposite. Darksiders 2 I feel like is more of an ease-in game. You get a little explanation of like, what is life and death and humanity, but you kind of start in the frozen area. You go through a small tutorial. There's not much, like, you don't know why you're there. You're kind of just easing into the gameplay. You meet the Crowfather, who kind of, eventually you get the reason why death is there. Like, I'm here to free my brother. I need to know why. Can I resurrect humanity? But that game kind of really just eases you into it, which is very different than just war comes down, immediately starts killing things.
For sure.
Love that game.
So good.
Similarly, Kingdoms of Amalur, which is also another video game.
Which
I've kind of showed you a little bit.
You show me a little bit. That's a game that you've consistently been like, you need to play this.
I love that game so much. You start dead.
Mm-hmm.
You start as a body in a cart with two gnomes being like, oh, he's dead. All right, he's a, and then as they say that, like, character creation pops up, and you get to make your character. And then you're thrown into a mass grave, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, obviously I'm dead. That game also gives you a little bit of plot, but not a lot of plot. It sets up the world, but it doesn't really set up what the main story is, in a sense.
It's still exposition.
It's still exposition, because they do kind of explain that there are a dark fae that are immortal, that every time you kill them, they come back, and the king is like this immortal tyrant. But it's in a way of like, well, I'm dead for some reason, and then you wake up, and so you're like, okay, what the fuck happened? I don't know what's happening. And then eventually, towards the end of the introduction, you get your answers of like, oh shit, the Well of Souls worked. We resurrected you from the dead.
Congratulations!
Yeah, like, this place is being attacked, and I'm about to die in about 30 seconds, so good luck. Like, you're kind of just thrown in. You don't know what happened. You were dead, you're not dead, and now you're just in a world. And so, God, I love that introduction.
So good. So good.
I just love an introduction where you are just, when something just happens, and you're like, what is happening?
It's why I love Baldur's Gate 3 so much.
Yeah. That is a little hard, because if we had, you kind of start out already fucked, so you don't really know that something went wrong.
It's a throw in the fray kind of scenario, but it's also a like, what the fuck is happening kind of scenario as well. Because like, unless you know D&D lore and stuff like that, none of that shit's gonna make sense.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, I gotta, you know, there's these weird squid alien dudes who like abducted us, and he put a tadpole in my head.
Yeah.
What, huh? Yeah. And then and then the tadpole's like, who are you? And then you go into character creation, and then it's like, you need a guardian. It's like, why do I need a guardian? And then you go through that. Also, it wasn't originally supposed to be a guardian.
Oh shit.
Whenever I was playing the beta, it wasn't a guardian. It was a sexy like lover, or like a person you dream about, you know?
Like a dreamer. Interesting.
Like supposed to be enthralling and enticing.
Glad they changed it.
I'm glad
Guardian really fits.
But yeah, it, and then you also create that, and you're like, why am I creating another character?
Yeah.
And then you end up in the hells, and you're like, what is happening?
Yeah. Another example I just thought of, Dragon Age Inquisition does Something Went Wrong very good. Of just, you start the game, and you're like, okay, we're in like the meeting of, and then it explodes, and then you wake up, and you're like everybody's dead, everybody's blaming me, what went wrong? It's not me. You're told it's you, but you're like, I don't think it was me that caused it. And that's kind of shit hit the fan, and you got to figure out what went wrong.
Yes. Another what went wrong that came into my head, sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
Is Final Fantasy X, which I know
I just have to start playing every single Final Fantasy game to understand what you're talking about.
So Final Fantasy X is my personal favorite. I will not say it is the best. That goes to 9. But Final Fantasy X is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
because it is just the one I played the most whenever I was a kid, and it influenced a lot. But intro starts. You're in a big city called Zackary. You're playing as his canonical name is N.E.R.D.S, but it's better if you just say Titus. You know,
Yeah.
Canonically, it's supposed to be N.E.R.D.S.
Titus is such a weird name.
It's terrible. It should be Titus because the game is about water.
That's just a fun pun.
Yeah, it's great. So you play as Titus, who's a blitzball player, which is basically a underwater rugby. And he's like famous, and his dad was also famous, and he has resentment towards his dad.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like easing you into the world. And then you're going off to go to your blitzball game. Starts off with this badass like fucking 90s rock intro where you're like like doing blitzball cinematic, and then while that's happening, we see another character, Oren, who was your dad's friend, watches the sky, and you just see a ginormous ball of water tear through the sky.
Oh.
And then just starts destroying Zackary.
Yeah. Something went wrong there.
Yes. And this happens while Titus is playing, and then lasers shoot when Titus is about to make a big shot. He falls, and Zackary starts being attacked.
Shit.
Titus runs and then finds Oren. And Oren, while everyone is running away from the big water ball that's destroying everything, Oren's walking towards it. And Titus is like, "What are you doing?" And then fucking Oren throws Titus' sword and is like, "You know how to use it?" And he's like, "I guess." And then you start fighting your way closer and closer to that being who's like shooting off scales, and its scales are turning into monsters. It's wonderfully like, what the fuck went wrong?
Yeah.
And then Oren you get up there, and Oren grabs Titus and basically puts him up to the water ball. It opens up to this big thing of light. And he's like, "This is your story." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And you both get sucked up.
Oh my god.
And that's where the game starts.
Oh, that's such a fun, like, oh shit.
And then you're basically isekai'd into not another world, but way farther in the future.
Interesting.
It's amazing.
Oh. I do want to make this distinction, because the more you talk about it, I was like, okay, there's a difference between something that went wrong and in the fray. Something went wrong is a story where the introduction is going towards A, and then B route hits it.
Yeah.
A great example of that I just hit, Dead Rising.
Yes.
You play as a photographer going to get footage of something, and then all of a sudden,
Zombie apocalypse.
You're hit with a zombie apocalypse. Like, you're not in the fray, really, because you're safe the entire time. There's no real danger. But you're like, oh, I'm a war photographer, and then it's like, you're taking pictures, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? And then you're like, oh shit, it's a zombie apocalypse! And then eventually you get into the mall.
What I love about Dead Rising specifically, and this has nothing to do with like the intro, but I just love it, is none of the characters are like, what is happening? What are these things? All the characters are like, fuck, it's zombies!
Yeah, they're like, I mean, at that point, if we right now got hit, like, if I looked outside and I saw zombies, I'd be like, what? I wouldn't be like, what the fuck? I'm like, it's fucking zombies.
Yeah.
Get the knife.
Yeah, no.
Like, barricade the door.
Yeah, give me a broom, give me a knife, let me tape it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind of realistic of, like, people are going to be like, what's happening? At least Dead Rising does it because they are very classic zombies.
Yeah.
You know, when you start getting to, like, World War Z, where they're in, like, even Last of Us, where it's, like, clickers, and that's where you're like, what the fuck is happening? But these are like, oh, it's a zombie. We kind of know what to do now.
Yep. And that's exactly... Dead Rising is exactly what I would do in a fucking zombie apocalypse. Make a bunch of weird-ass weapons and just start going ham.
Yeah. Lock yourself in a mall. One of
Yeah.
the greatest locations. Food, stuff.
Food, stuff, hell ton of zombies. But...
Yeah. We can both do them.
It's fine. But... yeah, I think it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's all the examples I have, unless you've got anything else.
I mean, there's so many great intros out there.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even cover any movie intros, and there's some classic ones out there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm just doing books and games because I don't really know much. I know a lot about movies. I couldn't think of any of them, so I was like, I just won't do any right now.
A lot of the game intros that I remember that just hit really well. I mean, Hyper Light Drifter has one of the most what I don't know what is happening type of intros that I've ever seen. It is beautiful.
If Dark Souls didn't have the the light and dark and fire,
it is called Loth.
Yeah, like if they didn't have that and you just woke up in the grave, that would be such a what the fuck is happening? Like I don't understand the world.
Hyper Light Drifter gets exposition, but not like vocally. There is no written words or anything like that in the game at all. It is all visually.
Yeah.
So it's like the way they portray everything. It's like, okay, you're set up in this weird sci-fi world, where everything is, there was this huge light and city. And then immediately the city explodes. And this huge, bigger than a nuke kind of explosion. And then you're at a lake of blood, and then you see the main character, the drifter, within the middle of the lake of blood. And then he starts coughing up something.
Oh, shit.
And that something becomes this kind of, monster behind him.
Okay.
He tries to attack it, but it doesn't really do anything. So he runs away from it.
He just leaves.
Well, he runs away from it. And then you climb up these stairs, and there are 4 titans that meet you there. And then a flash hits, and they're all crumbled and decaying. And the drifter is freaking out as well.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful. And then you end up at this tower where you see this coyote, and you follow it into the tower as they literally plunge from the lake of blood. It's wonderful. It's a gorgeous game, and that intro, when I first saw it, 3 years ago now, it hooked me. It hooked me hard to where that game is one of my favorite games of all time.
Damn.
So.
Oh, speaking of, the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Yes.
Intro. That's that's an ease-in if I've ever seen one of
It's an ease-in, but it's a good one.
You start, you're listening to music, you're like, hey, let's go do a job for extra credits.
Yeah, you're a ship scavenger.
Yeah, that is such a beautiful intro. That just eases you into this world, into Cal Kestis. You get the subtle hints he's a Jedi, then you get the obvious hints of him force stopping, and then you meet the Inquisition. It's like, oh my god.
And then they find out you're a Jedi, and then you have to run, he has to flee.
It's such a beautifully paced intro. Yeah, I thought I wanted to talk about it in this episode of sometimes video game intros can be very beautiful the first time, and then the second and third and fourth, you're like, just let me skip it. Jedi Fallen Order is one of those, and Skyrim is one of those where you're just like, let me just skip. It was gorgeous. If I want it, let me have it. Please, I don't want to sit through this. Because the Jedi Fallen Order is non-skippable, and it's a 20-minute intro.
It is.
And when you watch speedruns of that, they're like, we can't skip this. We just kind of have to play it, and it's kind of shitty because they're I don't know. I sometimes don't like it when games don't have a way of skipping it. And you're sort of just forced to go through the intro again, and you're like, you ruined a little bit of what I enjoyed about it.
Here's what I say when it comes to this kind of stuff, because Jedi Fallen Order is a story-heavy game.
Yeah, it is.
So, on your first playthrough, you should not be allowed to skip any of the cutscenes.
Absolutely.
On any other playthrough, you are then allowed to skip cutscenes.
Yeah.
That's how I think it should be developed for games.
Or even the option within a setting of skippable cutscenes, and then even if there's a little note of in your first playthrough, it's recommended you don't have this activated, but something that you can just let you skip cutscenes. Because God, I love that game so much. some of those cutscenes are really fucking long, and I just don't want to sit through again.
I get it.
And there are a lot of games kind of like that where you're like, either let me skip the cutscene or this tutorial is too damn long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not interesting enough.
Yes.
Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 comes to mind because like the whole intro is not very interesting, and like you are kind of repeatedly the same thing, and it's like I just wish I could skip this. Like I love the game, and like for the first time when I played it, really hooked me in.
Oh yeah.
I don't need it anymore, so let me just kind of move on to it.
Yeah, there's many intros we could talk about, but I think we've talked about a good solid amount and kind of what they do well. You know, as always, for any listeners, if any, leave a comment. What intros do you really love? You know, what really hooked you? Put in some movie intros as well, since we obviously couldn't think of any.
If there's a specific type of introductions you enjoy, if there are one you despise.
Oh yeah, tell us some terrible ones. Those are always the fun ones.
I always love being like, oh, I forgot about that horrible like book or movie introduction where you're like, God, this is horrible. Do I really sit through this? Mm-hmm. Like, I might well.
The Adam Sandler Hanukkah movie comes to mind with that. Anyway,
I haven't seen a single Adam Sandler movie. Not true. I just choose to forget about them from my memories.
Yeah, that one is terrible. It literally has a deer eating shit and then smiles. It's beautifully animated. It's like Disney level animation.
Interesting.
But it is not a good movie.
Damn.
Anyway.
Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button so that way you have notifications when we upload it every Monday.
Try for every Monday.
We have done it successfully except 1 week.
That is true.
I kind of forgot to because you called in.
Yeah, I was sick.
So we've done it successfully for almost 11 weeks.
Yep.
Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, share on all. You can find us on all. You can find us on all the streaming platforms except every single one but YouTube.
Yeah, you were just on YouTube. Right
we were just on YouTube. I just. That's all for me.
That's all for me.
Do you know what you're gonna do next week?
We're
gonna do.
Oh yeah. So next week is actually going to be a pretty fun one.
Yeah.
Because it's also going to be another collab one. Where we're going to sit down and talk about our top 9 favorite games.
Yeah.
We're going to do 9x9s.
9x9s. I will probably do my 9x9 in order.
Or I think it's a 3x3.
A 3x3. Yeah. I'll do my 3x3 in order because I like that kind of challenge of like, okay, what is my favorite game? What is my second favorite game? But yeah, we're going to talk about our 3x3.
I'll see what I can do order-wise, but...
we can't obviously share them visually, but we can look at them ourselves. And we'll talk about each individual one.
I mean, we could create the 3x3s and then maybe send it to whoever is editing the video, and then...
That's true, but every other video has been very simple.
That's true.
And it'd be weird to break it now.
I agree.
Like really break it. Next week we're doing video. We got cam screens.
Oh God, no.
That'd be horrible.
But yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's it for me.
I'll see you next week.
Bye bye.